All right, and welcome to this edition of All Five Rounds. I am one of your co-hosts, usually joined by my buddy Darren Laux, but he's not able to make it tonight. My name's Ty O'Keefe, and we are absolutely thrilled to have women's Atomweight champion from King of the Cage, Jayme Hinshaw. Jayme, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
You've really been making your mark lately. There's no doubt about it. You came into King of the Cage with a rough start, 1-3. And I'm a huge fan. I got to admit.
It was
Well,
actually
no,
3-1.
go ahead.
I'm all
And,
like,
and you've made me a fan. Doing research for this interview, I'm a huge fan because you have the last three fights. You have just been dominant. I love the way you finish. Your ground game is slick. Let's start out with talk about winning the title against Melissa Karen Giannis, rather. What did that mean to you to win the belt? And for where you were in your career and just overall, yeah, what it meant to you.
um, well, that was one of my goals. As soon as I became pro and signed with King of the Cage was to be on top, be the champion. So whenever I got the opportunity, I jumped on it, especially because it was a rematch of someone I'd already beat before, finished. So yeah, it actually meant um, take me to the next level, basically. You know what I mean? It helped me out with everything in my training and everything. I went in there, broke my arm in the first round, and still
Jesus.
continued to push through it, knowing that, whenever I punched and something felt wrong and was moving in there. But you know what I mean? I did whatever it took, and I had to get that win and to get it the same fashion and to finish her and literally knock like choke her out was amazing feeling.
I couldn't imagine overcoming something like that with a broken arm like that. And when I've been watching your fights, and I mean, you have heart, absolute heart. You are a no quit fighter, and it's one of the reasons I invited you on the show. When I saw that we were connected on Facebook, I thought, man, this would be fantastic. Now, obviously, your last fight against Biden, when you had faced her before,
Correct.
and
She was like my second pro fight.
what did it feel like to get that win in your first title defense? Be like not only even the score, but make sure you went home with the belt again.
Well, I went in there um thinking, you know what I mean, I got this. I had no doubt in my mind that I was going to win whenever I got the title against Melissa, and with this one I just there was no doubts. I know a lot of fighters they say that a lot, but I've had doubts, a little bit of doubts before in certain fights and stuff, and these two I just there was none. It was crazy. It was just going with the flow, and I just knew it was my time. So yeah, it was awesome. Like I said, whenever I fought B the first time, I stepped up short notice,
Yeah,
and I think my inexperience in the cage, my fight knowledge wasn't all there. I think, you know what I mean, if I had a couple more months, I would have probably won the first fight. But it is what it is. Things happen for a reason, and yeah.
I gotta ask, and this is I'm gonna be spineless and blame this on my co-host. I was talking to him on the phone before this interview. He's an ex-amateur fighter himself. One of my best friends, world known 23 years, so I got to do it. He noticed you coming out of the first round of your last fight. When you came into the second round, you weren't engaging as much initially. Were you hurt coming into that second round of your last fight?
With B, no. I was just kind of basically because in my last fights before, whenever I would just kind of go in there and gave it all I would have, and I thought that that was very immature and not that smart. You know what I mean? I'm all like, well, I got this. I know that I can, you know what I mean, take her. I was beating her on the feet, so I was just relaxing,
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of letting her come to me. You know what I mean? I wasn't going to chase her down.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah, and of all things I've noticed, you got a slick ground game, and Darren again wants to, and this is another one of his questions, but I totally agree. Are you going to try to work more on your takedowns in order to get people in a situation where you can put those finishes on them? Is that something you're working on in training?
I just kind of go in there and I I don't try to force a takedown. I don't try to force anything. I'm learning as I go that just go in there and go with the flow. You know what I mean? And just whatever they give me, I'm going to take. I'm not going to go forcefully and mess myself up and get myself in a bad position. I know a lot of people, like most of my finishes are on the ground, but I wanted to show
Yeah.
people too that I could strike as well. I'm not just a ground
Yeah,
person.
and you've absolutely proven that you can strike. You're not, by no means are you a one-dimensional fighter. You can absolutely do that. In your next fight coming up November 10th, yeah, thoughts on your opponent? I'm curious. What do you think your opponent coming up on November 10th?
I've seen her fought, I think like once before. Can't really remember it. She started following me, and I followed her on Instagram way before. Don't know too much about it. We're both kind of pretty private, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
and just to clarify, that's Katie Saul. I'm sorry, I didn't mention that. That's Katie Saul. Go ahead.
yeah, correct. Yeah, I really know much about her is that I don't even know her record, but I know she's a lefty and she's a little bit taller than me, and that's kind of really all I need to know.
I love how you are like that. You know, it's like you're saying, okay, I have a fight. I'm going to fight whoever shows up, and that it'll go how it goes. You see, and I think that's a great attitude to have. I'm curious. I've been doing this for a while in terms of as a writer, and I've noticed. Obviously, it's not hard to notice. Atomweights. There's not much at women's atomweight competition in North America. It's not a division that is getting the attention it deserves. Do you ever see the atomweight division becoming a part of Bellator or the UFC?
Honestly, I would campaign for that.
Oh, of course.
I would love to be able to have Bellator and UFC weights. Honestly, I think Invicta and King of the Cage and these other Ryzen, these other organizations kind of have a jump start on it because they kind of seen the potential and the feistiness and us little fighters just because we're 105 pounds don't mean nothing. I think we can stand with the 115ers and everything like that. Great performances. We're fast and it's exciting. I think we're
Absolutely.
not boring fighters. So
Yeah.
they need to step up their game and come on, get us atom weights in there.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more. A major promotion in North America does need to step up and do something about this. It's not like there's not a bunch of talent from all over the world that they could bring in. I mean, there are women's atomweight fighters all over this planet. So it's not like, we need to stop looking just to North America for North American promotion when it comes to stuff like that. Now, one of the things that's always impressed me is fighters who aren't quite there financially because they're not in one of the bigger promotions, and they got to grind it out at a day job. And then when they're done grinding it out, they got to train. And when they're done training, and in between training and everything else, they got to be a parent. Now, that's something you're an expert in. Can you talk about that? Now, I heard your Cape Side submission interviews and stuff like that. Have things changed? Are you working the balance a little bit more to your satisfaction? And just talk about what that's been like.
Right now, I don't have any type. My full-time job is being a fighter and a mom and a
Oh,
wife.
fantastic. Fantastic.
So I'm actually pretty lucky on that. It's still hard, struggle, you know what I mean? You know how it is.
Yeah, it never
We
ends.
don't get, yeah, we basically have to pay to fight. And that's what a lot of fans don't understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you're not in it and you don't make it to the big leagues, that's when you kind of, I think we get the recognition and the money we deserve. But right coming up, it's very hard. It messes with you mentally, physically, you know what I mean? Not being able to like just stressing over bills or how am I
Yeah.
gonna get this the medicals or whatever like that kind of puts a strain on you. But at the end of the day you think about it, it's like I'm working towards a bigger goal, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's everything that's worth having. It's a struggle and you have to
Yeah.
fight for it. So same thing with this, you know what I mean? Once we make it to the top, it's like I guess that recognition that finally, like, yes, you know what I mean? Like finally now you see all my hard work put together and this is what it
Yeah.
was all for, so
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It's a grind. And unless you're an MMA purist or a writer or someone who's fighting, people don't understand the work you guys put in. Now I know you're over at Fit NHB. Are you you've been over there? Obviously, Nico Montana's a big name come out of there. Are you planning? I mean, obviously, you're not going to jump ship. You know, no one's thinking that. But what are you working on there? What's your main goal? Is there any kind of? I guess what I'm asking is, you've got a slick ground game. Is there anything you're working on in order that you feel is a weakness that you need to be working on over at Fit NHB in terms of your game, your
Um,
skill set?
Honestly, I think that there's always room to improve, all the way around. And whenever you think that you're the best and you don't need to learn this stuff, I think that's where it messes people up and they stop learning. And that's when they plateau and that's when they get beat. You know, there's always going to be something, even whenever I'm off the top. Even years from now, you probably ask me the same question. I'll tell you the same thing. I'm always learning. That's the
Yeah,
great thing about this sport. It's always evolving. So you have to keep, keep your mind open and constantly be learning and taking in all this information because the game changes all the time. You know, like when it first
absolutely.
started coming down, a lot like Hoist Gracie and stuff like that, the ground game, a lot of people would get caught up in that. And then once people started getting slick to that, they had to change up their game plan and their style and everything, you know what I mean? So that's the, with me, I'm always constantly working on every aspect. I'm, wrestling, striking, and grappling always. So yeah, there's not I don't think a week that goes by that I don't work on any of those.
Absolutely, and that you're right. That is what makes this sport so great, so much different than other sports. It's always changing, always, always, always. And I'm curious as well. Now, you're obviously a very young woman. You have a lot of time left in the cage to do this. Is there a point though that you've set out in your head? You're saying, okay, at this point in my life, I'm going to be done if I haven't done this, or at this point in my life, I'm going to be done no matter what. Have you sat down and thought about that?
My goals, I'm already surpassing and meeting my goals, what I have. You know what I mean? When I first got in the game, if you would have told me that I would be sitting here today, I wouldn't believe you. So it's always changing. I love fighting. I always say sometimes like there's times when it gets hard, like I said, with money and everything, and you're like, you know what, I'm just done with this. Like I can't do this no more. And then a couple hours later, you're like, let's go to the gym. You know
Yeah,
what I
yeah.
mean? Like, I don't see myself quitting until I physically can't do it anymore. Because like I said, I just love to fight. So as long as I can do it, I'll be in there.
Do you ever see a point where if there were an opportunity where some like say an Asian promotion, right, with a larger roster of atomweight talent, let's say they approached you and said, hey, come over here for X amount of fights, but you're gonna have to live here and do that. Would that be something you consider doing?
If it's in the best interest of me, if I have my blessings with my coaches and for my family, I might consider it. But you know what I mean? All that has to play a factor in it.
Yeah,
I can't just go up and leave. You know what I mean? I do have a daughter and
yeah.
a wife. A husband, and yeah, I have my team over there at FinHB. They're my family. They're the one that's brought me up.
Yeah.
I'm fit for life. So that if any type of opportunity like that comes, I would have to sit down with my family and my coaches together and have a meeting and discuss it and kind of see where it goes.
Long term, now you've been with King of the Cage professionally. Do you see yourself ever going to a different promotion, or are you going to stick it out? It's kind of know it's hard to tell. You never know what's going opportunity is going to come. But do you see yourself, eyeing another promotion or going somewhere else to fight?
Um, right
Like
now,
within the United States, I mean.
right now I'm still signed with them. I think I have like one more fight with them. But like I said, I'm pretty open to a lot. As long as my coaches are okay with it and it's in my best interest, you know what I mean?
Well,
I'm
you
not
got
gonna
some
go turn my
leverage.
back in.
Yeah, you got
Huh?
some leverage. You got some leverage now too, right? You got that belt. So it's not like, you have some leverage. You're going to be able to make some decisions for yourself. And that's fantastic because you earn those opportunities. I really hope to see you getting bigger opportunities as they come. Now, moving forward, let's say ideally, perfect world, 5 years from now, where's Jayme Hinshaw?
I'm living it up and I'm fighting for the UFC. Getting that
Absolutely.
big bucks. I'm
Yeah.
all like, and being the top atomweight in that division in the UFC, that's where I see myself. Well, that's ideally, that's if they do get the atomweights. Yeah, there's no doubt.
Um, I hate to ask this. I've been doing this to everybody all week because it's impossible not to talk about it, I guess. Did you catch the Connor Khabib nonsense?
Yeah, I actually did.
What did you think about the fight in the octagon and the fight afterwards?
I think he showed dominance against Conor McGregor. Conor had no answer for really some of his stuff. I think Conor got what he deserved. A lot of people talk crap about him jumping out of the cage and everything. It's like there's a lot of things to put into factor. They don't want to sit there and talk bad about Conor. Conor did the same thing. He jumped into the Bellator cage for his
Yeah,
buddy
Mark
and,
Goddard.
and
Yeah,
started a fight. Yeah, you know what I mean?
very
People
good point.
forget about that. They forget about him coming up and attacking bus full of other fighters and literally making other fighters pull out of the fight
Yeah, and that
and
costs people
endangering other
money.
people's lives. Yeah,
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like you could go and do that, and the way the UFC like kind of promoted it that way, I think they kind of egged it on.
yeah,
I don't see Khabib as like that type of person, but you poke a bear so much, you know what I mean? You mess with someone so
absolutely.
much they could only take so much before they're like, I'm fed up with your shit. I'm gonna do something about
Yeah,
it. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And you even heard there's a little clip of Conor even freaking saying, basically, kind of like apologizing, saying, it's only business
I
after,
heard
like,
that.
I think the second round. And it's like, yeah, you already done fucked up.
Yeah,
You
and
know what I
you're right.
mean?
You're right because when you've been in a fight, and I was never a fighter, but I've been in other fights, and as soon as someone starts saying it, they want out. As soon as someone's saying something like it's only business, to me that means you want out. You don't want to be in
Yeah.
that fight anymore. You know what I mean? And yeah, it's hard to ignore. I personally was shocked at how shocked people were. We consumed
Right.
these promos. We sat there, consumed these promos of the dolly going through the window. We know these
Exactly.
guys are fighters. These guys are violent outside of the octagon before they're fighters. That's why a lot of these guys are fighters. And yet, hey, let's all buy the pay-per-view and then act all better than everybody because, oh my God, it's such a shock. So I think it's ridiculous myself. But
Yeah.
now, if you had a choice, obviously UFC is the top of top whatever. But if let's just say Bellator were to start one of those atomweight divisions and to do a show, one like a tough type show, would that be something you'd ever be interested in doing?
I would love to. Bellator, I see that they do good with their fighters. They treat them good and everything like that. So I have no problem to go to Bellator, that organization. That would be awesome.
Now, before I let you go, one last question. I got to do it to you. Prediction: November 10th. What happens? How does it happen against
Um,
Teresa?
it's gonna end up the same way. I'm just gonna walk out that cage with the belt around my waist. Whether it be by TKO, KO, submission, or
Whatever it
stoppage
takes.
or whatever, you know what I mean? In
Yeah,
either
I
way,
hear you.
I'm winning this fight. Like I said, there's no doubt about it. I have so many people behind me and that's been preparing me for this fight and before my other fights. So like I said, I have a good team behind me and I trust in them and my coaches, so there's no worries.
Well,
I'm gonna be the champ.
you turned me into a fan, and I will definitely be tuning in and promoting that fight. I want to thank you so much for coming on. Actually, you are all 5 rounds first fighter guest, first guest ever. So we will always remember you, and we would love to have you back after you defend your title successfully on November 10th. Hopefully, we'd love to have you back and talk to you about that. And you can dance around and be all happy saying you got your second title defense and do whatever you want. It'll be great. So thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate it. And we look forward to November 10th.
Me too. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.